Today's shir is Israel at 70. Happy birthday. Israel at 70, right? So anyway, the Torah tells us in this week's Parsha, Parshas Kedoshim, Mipnei Seva Takum, Avram, Mipnei Seva Takum. For an old person, he should stand up and give respect. And the Mishnah says, Ben Shivim L'Seva. What's considered an old person that he has to give him respect? Ben Shivim L'Seva? 70. So if you have to stand up for a person when he's 70, a Kal V'chomer, you have to stand up for Medinas Yisrael and give respect for the nation that turned 70. What a miracle. 70 years of miracles of Pele. 3 years after Auschwitz, to come back and rebuild this wonderful country. Nobody comes back after Auschwitz for 2,000 years. It's a Pele. It's a wonder of wonder. The miracles, these 70 years, we're the leader in high-tech and low-tech, smartphones, dumb phones, the leader in medical, medicine, military, defense, agriculture innovations, incredible exports to the entire world, ways, everything is what the state of Israel. So we have to stand up and give respect, Ben Shivim L'Seva, the country that turned 70, we have to stand up in awe of the state of Israel. Now Yom Ha'atzmaut, Rabbi Yosef is coming Wednesday night, right? Wednesday night. So how do we celebrate Yom Ha'atzmaut? How do we celebrate Yom Ha'atzmaut? Okay? Before we get to our sheets, I want to read you something. Something incredible. The Ari HaKadosh, who lived in the year 1560. You hear this, Yosef? The Ari lived in the 1560s. In his book called Machberet HaKodesh, right, which he didn't write because he dictated. He didn't write anything. He just spoke to Chaim Vital. But in the Sefer Machberet HaKodesh, the Ari Avram lived in the 1500s, right? He writes that you have to give special attention to the 20th day of the Omer. What is the 20th day of the Omer, Yehuda? Alana will like this. The 20th day of the Omer is Hey B'Iyar. 20th day of the Omer is Hey B'Iyar. He says that you have to, even though it's the middle of the Sfira, on the 20th day of the Omer, Hey B'Iyar, you have to be B'Simcha. You hear what the Ari HaKadosh wrote? Avram, how many years before the Yom Ha'atzmaut? He lived in the 1550s. So in his Sefer Machberet HaKodesh, he writes that the 20th day of the Omer, which happens to be Hey B'Iyar, even though it's the middle of the Sfira, a person has to be B'Simcha. And what the heck was he talking about, Dr. Hackett? I think he was Haredi, the Ari HaKadosh. You hear this?
How did he know?
How did he know? He didn't say what, but he said you have to be B'Simcha. And the guy in the Vilna,
so that was the Ari.
The guy, what?
The Ari.
The Ari HaKadosh. Mechberes HaKodesh says that even though it's the middle of Sfira, the 20th of the Omer, i.e. Hey B'Iyar, you have to be B'Simcha. He didn't say why. But we know why, Connie. Now we know why. 500 years later, Abraham, we know why.
Does that justify...
Now 1 minute. The Vilna Gaon, what?
Does that justify... They can have music on...
1 minute. Don't rush me. The Vilna Gaon was also Haredi, commanded his Talmidim that he sent to Eretz Yisrael that on the 5th of Iyar, they should celebrate that day even though it's in the middle of the Sfira. That means 136 before the state of Israel was found, 136 before, the Vilna Gaon commanded his Talmidim to come to Eretz Yisrael and to celebrate that day. He didn't say why. But we know why. You hear this, Yisrael? I quoted you the Vilna Gaon, I think it was very Haredi. And the Ari HaKadosh was very Haredi. That's pretty amazing. And the Vilna Gaon further, in the Sefer Medrash Shlomo, in the Sefer, writes that even though the Yemei Omar is Yemei Hadin, judgment days, but there are 2 days on the Omer which are not judgmental days. He says the 20th of Omer, which happens to be what, Yehuda? Hey B'Iyar, and he says the 42nd day of the Omer. What's the 42nd day of the Omer, Dr. Abramson? Yom Yerushalayim. The Vilna Gaon, Larry, I think he was Haredi, writing in the Sefer Medrash Shlomo that even though the Sfira is a day of judgment, you're not supposed to celebrate. He said there are 2 exceptions. The 20th of the Omer which happens to be Hey B'Iyar, and the 42nd day of the Omer, which just happens to be Zisel, just happens to be what? Yom Yerushalayim. Now, what do you say about that? Okay. Now, some people say, Rabbi Yosef, don't confuse me with the facts. But what are the facts? Let's look at sheet number 1. Side number 1, Avraham, it's in Hebrew and in English. This is the response to Kol Mavaser, the great Gaon who lived when the state was founded, of Sholem Rata. And he writes in source, side number 1, source 4. You see that? Chamisha B'Iyar, Shenikvu L'chag, L'chog Osa B'chol Oret Zeichel Anes, Mitzvah Lasoto Simcha B'Yom Tov Eloi Mahalel. I think you have it in the English, no? It is a mitzvah on Hey B'Iyar, on Yom Ha'atzmaut. It's a mitzvah to rejoice, to celebrate a Yom Tov. Yom Tov means to have a special meal, and to say what? To say what? Hallel. And to say Hallel.
Doesn't mean you're not supposed to work, though?
Mitzvah, you could work.
It's
It's like Hanukkah, you're allowed to work, but there's a mitzvah to celebrate with a meal and to say Hallel. You see that? Now look at the English. It is a mitzvah to commemorate Avram, the miracle established for the state of Israel on the 5th of Iyar. It is a mitzvah to commemorate this day as a Yom Tov, which means what? Yom Tov means what? Suda. So those people having a mangal, they're doing a mitzvah. No, not those people that are doing Ala Eish, David, they're doing Ala Eish, they're doing a mitzvah, whether they know it or not. The barbecuers are doing a mitzvah. And by singing Hallel.
As long as it's kosher.
As long as it's kosher. It is certainly obligatory upon us, David, you have a sheet, to what? To what source, can you give it? To what? To celebrate the day as a Yom Tov. Now what about saying a Shechiyanu? What about saying a Shechiyanu? So Rav Sholem Arata, he writes that anyone who wants to say Shechiyanu, he's permitted. There's no Shash Bracha Lavatala. And it's correct to say the Shechiyanu. You don't have to, but you're permitted to say Shechiyanu right before you say what? Hallel. Now if you say Hallel with a bracha, then you should make the Shechiyanu before the bracha and the Hallel. You said if you say Hallel without a bracha, then before you begin Hallel, it's correct to say Shechiyanu. So, to say Hallel Avram is an obligation. To make a Shechiyanu, he says, is what? Is optional. The Shechiyanu is optional, to say it before Hallel, but to say Hallel is obligatory, to thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for what? For the Nisim that took place on Yom Ha'atzmaut. So you should say the Shechiyanu if you want to, before you say Hallel. About saying a bracha not, what's the answer? So the answer is that some people make a bracha, and some people what? Don't make a bracha. What is our custom, Avram? To make a bracha not, Avram. Our custom is to fight about it. So what do you say? You should say Hallel. Whether you make a bracha not, that's up to you. But you should definitely say Hallel even without a bracha. Again, certain rabbis say you should make a bracha, others say you should not, but everyone agrees that you should what? Say Hallel. To thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for what? For the great miracles of what? That took place on Yom Ha'atzmaut, just 3 years after Auschwitz. Look at source number 5. Rabbi Dov Lior, yes?
Question regarding the rabbi.
Sholem Rata, he was a superstar, the greatest Talmud Chacham who lived here when the state of Israel was established. When the state of Israel was established, the chief rabbi Herzog, tremendous Talmud Chacham, told this by Sholem Rata to write a tshuva where you say Hallel or not. So this is the tshuva that he wrote, that it's a mitzvah. It's a chayv to say Hallel and to establish it as what? As a Yom Tov, the Ikar Nes, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu saved us and rescued us, that you should say Hallel. Whether a bracha or not, that he says is optional, bracha or not, but definitely you should say Hallel.
Do the Edom being Shurim, they say Hallel?
I hope so. I don't know.
Do the Haredi follow this? Or
I don't, some do and some don't. Okay, I'm glad you asked me that. The Admor of Masadi Gura, a Haredi rabbi, Rav Ram Yaakov Friedman Zatzal, he was a big chosid, Admor of Sadigur. He said that in his base of Medrash, they would say Hallel, B'tzibur, and they would dance on Yom Ha'atzmaut in front of the Beis Knesset. It's a mitzvah to celebrate. This is Rav Ram Yaakov Friedman. He was a Hasidic Rebbe, the Admor of Sadigur. And he says that on Yom Ha'atzmaut you should say Hallel and you should dance and celebrate. Okay, this is a Hasidic Rebbe, Rav Avram Yaakov Friedman, Zecher Tzadik Levracha. Rav Adi Yosef said you should say Hallel without a bracha. He said Yom Ha'atzmaut Chag Gadol. Here it's a great miracle, and you should praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but you should not make a bracha, because something brachas lahakel. But definitely you should say Hallel to praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu for all the miracles that He did to us, and not to be denying the good that Hashem did to us. Okay, now look at source number 5. Avram asked me about shaving on Avram, source number 5. You with me or against me? This is Rav Dov Lior. Who's Rav Dov Lior? The Rosh Yeshiva and the chief rabbi of Kiryat Arba Hebron. Now look what he says over here, Avram. You see that? Because of the great miracle of the establishment of the state of Israel on the 5th of Iyar, salvation of Jewish people, it is not only permissible to what, Avram? To celebrate on this day, despite being in the middle of the Omer, it is obligatory to celebrate, to sing, dance to the music, and to listen to live music. When? You know, even though it's the middle area, it's in the middle of what? The Sphira. It is also permissible to shave on Yom Ha'atzmaut, Avram. To shave on Yom. Why? As none of the practices of mourning during the Omer period are commemorated on this great day of what? Of Yom Ha'atzmaut. You hear that? Now how does he know that? Let's look at the Hebrew. Look at the Hebrew, the second paragraph, Yehuda. You see that? See, it says, L'chein mutar mitzvah, the end of the first paragraph. I think it's underlined. Underline, L'chein mutar. What's the next word? U'mitzvah l'smoach. There's a mitzvah to what? To happy, l'shir. Sing, v'lirkot, and to dance for Yom Ha'atzmaut. On day of this one. The next paragraph, Rabbi. Have that? L'chein mutar litgaleach. You're allowed to shave. How do I know that? He has a raya. Kifisha kosa b'halacha. The Shulchan Aruch says clearly, Shemi sheyesh lo brit milah livno b'mei asfira. Someone that has a brit milah for his child in the sfira, misgaleach mistaper b'yom, then he can certainly watch, shave, and take a haircut even on the day, even though it's sfira. Afa pisha yedei zeh ein lo b'sach hakol shloshim yomim. Even though he's not going to finish the 33 days of Avelut. So he says the same to Yom Ha'atzmaut. Brit Milah is a private simcha. And if you could shave for a private simcha, then you can certainly shave for what? The public simcha. Yom Ha'atzmaut, sikum. What does sikum mean, Avram? See sikum? Summary. Yom Ha'atzmaut. What's the next word? Sikum. Yom shenasa boines. Hatzala mimoves l'chayim l'klal Yisrael. Yes, the tzayim amiras halel shalom bracha. So he says, Rav Dov Lior Shlita, that you should what? Make a bracha. As a general rule, the Sephardi rabbis say halel without a bracha. The Ashkenazi rabbis, they say what? Make a bracha. But they all say you should what? Say halel. Yes, the tzayim amiras halel b'shalom bracha. Ein b'yom zeh, Avram. You have it? Ein b'yom zeh. Kol din avelut. There is no din avelut on the sfira on when? On Yom Ha'atzmaut. Umitorim b'simcha. And you're permitted to what? Simcha. B'rikudim. What does rikudim mean? Music. Dancing. B'livui klei zemer. What does klei zemer mean? Instruments. V'chein b'giluach. And you're permitted to shave. The Chenisas HaChag. Which Chag? Yom Ha'atzmaut is a great Chag. And we have to celebrate and thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And I just quoted to you the Ari and the Vilna Gaon who said, hey, hundreds of years ago, they said, hey, B'Iyar, Avram, is a day of Simcha. They didn't say why. We know why. But hundreds of years ago, they predicted the Vilna Gaon and the Ari that Hey B'Iyar, David, is a day of joy. They didn't say, but Ruach HaKodesh, they were looking to what? What? They were Haredi, I think.
Yeah.
Last time I checked, the Ari and the Vilna Gaon were very Haredi. Okay, let's turn over the sheet. This is from Tehillim. Tehillim, Avraham, chapter 107. You tell me that King David is not writing about Yom HaTzmaot. Fasten your seatbelts, Avraham.
Yeah.
Tehillim, the top line, in the assembly of people. You see that in the top line? The assembly of people. You have that?
Oh, yeah.
Footnote 4, Elisheva. From this verse, the Talmud learns that the blessing of thanksgiving, Birchat HaGomel, must be said in the presence of what? Of 10 men. The kahal. What's a kahal? 10 people, right?
Right.
10 people's a kahal. So to say Birchat HaGomel, men need what? Men need what, Dr. Hackett?
A lot of help.
10. Ooh, a lot of help, Elisheva. The Moshe Feinstein Zatzal Paskin, that this only applies to men. Women don't need a minyan to say Hallel. Women don't need a minyan to say Hallel. Isn't that amazing?
It's the truth.
Does that apply?
The men, one second, the men, Rabbi Yosef, never, like she said, we need a lot of help from our friends. We need a minyan to say Birchat HaGomel. But Moshe Feinstein Zatzal, he paskin that women don't need a minyan for Birchat HaGomel. They can thank God on their own, and it's just as powerful as if there would be 10 people there. Isn't that amazing?
They don't need a minute to pray. Why do they need a minute for Hallel? I mean,
Not Hallel, Birchat HaGomel. Talk about Birchat HaGomel over here.
What about
With Hallel, the same thing. The same thing with Hallel. Normally, Birchat HaGomel, you need 10 people to publicize the miracle. But Moshe says that only applies to men. We need a lot of help. But ladies, they get God one-on-one, and when they say Hallel or Birchat HaGomel, they do not need what? A minyan. Now let's take a look at this incredible psalm. King David wrote this, David Harel, 3,000 years ago, and you tell me that he's not writing about Yom HaTzmaot, Larry. Fasten your seatbelts. I made it for you in English. See, it's Hebrew and in English, okay? Look at verse 33, Larry. Verse 33. He turns rivers into a wilderness and springs of water into what?
An arid place.
What's he talking about? You know that Israel invented technology. Yosef, we extract water from thin air.
Yes.
Should I repeat that?
Yes.
We extract water from thin air and we sell it to Jordan and to Africa. We invented drip irrigation. Isn't King David in verse 33, 3,000 years ago, I'm talking about that. He turns rivers into a wilderness, springs of water into an arid place. Look at note 34, Avram. Verse 34. A fruitful land into a salt waste because of the wickedness of its inhabitants. That's where what? Hamas lives. Avraham, please read 34. If you don't fasten your seatbelts, you fall off your chair. You know what Gush Katif looked like? It was a paradise, a Gan Eden on earth. Orchards and flowers and trees and plants and gardens and beautiful farming. Look at 34. As soon as we left, as soon as we were kicked out, as soon as we were expelled, Masha, what happened? 34. A fruitful land was turned into what? A waste. Because of the wickedness of Hamas and the PLO. They took a beautiful, fruitful land, Gush Katif. What does it look like now? It looks like a junkyard now.
And our wicked government did it.
King David, how did he know this 3,000 years ago? You don't need any Bible codes, Yosef. No Bible codes. Please keep this copy. Look at verse 34. A fruitful land into a salt waste. That's Gush Katif. It was a heaven on earth. It was a Gan Eden, Gush Katif. And when we got kicked out, it became a wasteland. Wow. Wow. Now, verse 35. He turns a wilderness into a pool of water. You see that?
Yes.
and a dry land into what? Springs of water. Again, Israel invented a technology, Chava, we extract water from the thin air. Huh? Wow. Now, look at verse 37. And they planted fields and planted vineyards where I live. Where I live. Pisgat Zev. Before the Israeli army liberated it, it looked like what? The moonscape. Like when Samuel Clemens was here. What's his name? Mark Twain in 1859. He said he never saw such...
1867.
I think it was 1850, whatever. He was here in 1860. He said he never saw such a God-forsaken, barren place. And that's what Pisgat Zev looked like until the Israeli army liberated. And now, verse 37, they planted fields and planted vineyards, yield the fruit. Verse 38, and he blessed them, and they multiplied greatly. You see that? Now, verse 39 is speaking about the Holocaust, Larry. How did King David know this 3,000 years ago? And they were reduced in numbers and brought low. Hitler, 6 million of us, right? So it looks like it's all over for us. Right? But what happened in verse 41, Yehuda? 3 years after the Holocaust, and he lifted up the needy from affliction, and he established families like a flock.
Yes.
This is our revenge on Hitler. The families in Jerusalem and Israel, the 16, 17 children per family. Is that normal? Some, the 18, 19 children with one wife, Yehuda. Verse 41, he lifted up the needy from affliction and established families like a flock. Now, do we realize these miracles, Rabbi Yosef?
I do.
Some people, they just don't get it. It passes over their heads. Look at verse 43, Slicha. The last verse in the Psalm, Avraham Brokowitz. Mi chacham v'yishmar eleh. Who is wise? Let him note these miracles. Stop. V'yizbonenu. What does yizbonenu mean? You have it in English. Meditate on the Chazdei Hashem. Be makeh toiv ta'kodesh baruch Hu. Of all the goodness that He's done. Happy birthday, Israel. Da 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 da. Today's your birthday. 70. Stand up, Abraham. When a human being reaches 70, you have to stand up. When the state of Israel reaches 70, you're supposed to stand with respect and awe of what Hashem has allowed us to accomplish in these 70 years. But you have to be a chacham. Verse 43, Chava, Mem Gimel. Mi chacham v'yishmar eleh. Who is wise, let him pay attention to these miracles. V'yizbonenu. Yehuda, you have to meditate on the Chazdei Hashem and not to take it for granted, to step back and to appreciate the tremendous miracles of this wonderful country.
That's right.
Tiny Israel, smaller Avram than New Jersey. You can check Google. Smaller than New Jersey, is a world leader in high-tech, low-tech, medical technology. We saved so many lives through Jimmy Carter.
Yeah, he didn't deserve
He is alive. He's 95. He has brain cancer. He is alive because he uses the Israeli medicine that was invented to treat his brain cancer. Jimmy Carter, 95 years old. If it wasn't for the Israeli medical technology, he'd be dead a long time. Hey, Jimmy.
Yeah, really.
Now, where did this come from, Yehuda? Why did Hashem make us surrounded with so many enemies? I'm going to tell you a big secret over here. What's God's cheshbon? Through the need for military technology for the IDF, because we needed to defend ourselves against so many enemies, we needed this innovation of technology, which was invented by military technology for war, evolved into what? Civilian technology. Israel took the technology of war and produced the technology of what? Of life. We're literally living the Isaiah 2, Dr. Abramson, Isaiah chapter 2, where when Mashiach comes, we're going to beat the swords into what? In plowshares. That's exactly what's happening. The military technology that Israel needed to survive has now evolved into what? Technology that saves countless lives all over the world. Perhaps that was God's plan, to surround us with so many enemies that Israel would have no choice but to come up with what? With military technology, which is used now, saves thousands of lives every year throughout the world. The technology that was what? Only from Israel. This is Isaiah chapter 2, Abraham, where when Mashiach comes, we're going to beat the swords into what? Into plowshares. Isn't that incredible? Isn't that amazing what is going on over here? Right? Now, it's just amazing that the Haftorah, anyone have a Chumash with the Haftorah here? The amazing Haftorah that I'm going to read this Shabbos from the book of Amos, that seems to be talking about exactly what took place on Yom Ha'atzmaut. Now, the book of Amos was written about 2,800 years ago. And when Amos wrote this book, the Jewish people were not in captivity. The cities of Israel were not desolate. Israel was in all of its glory. There were two kingdoms, the kingdom of Israel and the kingdom of what? Of Yehuda. And he says something strange in Amos chapter 9, which is read every Shabbos where the week of Yom Ha'atzmaut happens to fall. And he says as follows, V'shafti shivus ami Yisrael. I will bring back the captivity of my people Israel. Now when he said this in Amos chapter 9, the Jewish people were not in captivity. So they said, what are you talking about, Amos? V'shafti shavus ami Yisrael. I will bring back the captivity of my people Israel. Ubanu orim neshamot. And they will rebuild desolate cities. And they will plant gardens and vineyards. So when he said that the cities were not desolate, the Jewish people were not in captivity. So when Amos said this, they said, hey prophet, take a pill and lie down. What are you talking about? It doesn't seem to make any sense. This is the Haftarah we're going to read this Shabbos in the book of Amos. In the art scroll, in the stone Chumash. In the stone Chumash, it is on page 1173. Amos chapter 9. It's always read, the Haftarah is always read, I have it, is always read, what? The week of Yom Ha'atzmaut. And I'll read it to you. This is the end of Amos chapter 9. The Haftarah, please listen to Shabbos. I shall bring back the captivity of my people Israel. When he said that the Jewish people were not in captivity. And they will rebuild desolate cities. Rabbi Yaakov Goldman, when he said this, the cities were not desolate. And they will return and plant vineyards. Return from where? They were not in Golus. And they will make beautiful gardens in Pisgat Zev and eat their fruit. And I shall implant them back on their land. And they will not be uprooted again from their land, says Hashem your God. Now when he said this, nobody knew what he's talking about. The Gemara Megillah says, David, there were millions of prophets, millions. How come only 48 are recorded of Yosef? Because those millions of prophets, they spoke what? For their time. I'm not interested. Tanakh is not history. But the 48 Nevi'im that are recorded are speaking today. When Amos said this, the people have no idea what he's talking about. What desolate cities? What beautiful gardens that have to be what? Replanted. It was beautiful. Everything was fine when he said this. So obviously Amos chapter 9 is speaking about what? Yom Ha'atzmaut. And it's amazing that this Haftarah is read every year, the week of what? Could that be a coinky dinky?
No.
I think Amos was Haredi. Amos chapter 9. Check it out. The last few verses, 14, 15. Amazing, this Shabbos reading, again, prophesizing clearly of Yom Ha'atzmaut. I'm going to tell you something more amazing. Fasten your seatbelts, Avraham. If you don't write this down, I'll be disappointed. Shvi shel Pesach. Always, I think you know this. Shvi shel Pesach always falls on the same day of the week as Yom Ha'atzmaut. Shvish, what is Shvish Pesach this year? It was Friday, wasn't it?
Friday.
When is really Yom Ha'atzmaut?
Friday.
Friday.
The real day.
Because we push it up, should be Chilul Shabbos. But you can check the calendar, going back to Jewish Statement 48, that Shvi Shal Pesach always falls on the same day of the week as Yom Ha'atzmaut. Now what is amazing, Larry, about that? I'll tell you what's amazing. I'll tell you what's amazing. Now that cannot be a coincidence. You know Bible codes? When the Jews were liberated from Mitzrayim, it was the first day of Pesach, right? If you look in Rashi, Pashas B'Shalach, Rashi says something amazing. On the 7th day of Pesach, the Jews came to a place called Pi Achirot. Right by the Red Sea, God says, camp by a place called Pi Achirot. Literally means the mouth of what? The liberty. Pi Achirot. Says Rashi, why is the place by the Red Sea called Pi Achirot? Listen to Rashi very carefully. Because now the Jewish people were free. I thought they were free on the first day of Pesach. But Rashi says, no, only now on Shvi Shal Pesach, when the Mitzvah will get what's coming to them, then we'll really be free. So therefore the camp, where the Jews encamp by the Red Sea, is called Pi Achirot, the mouth of liberty, says Rashi, because now, not a week ago on the Exodus, only now are we getting our what? Spiritual freedom. Physical freedom as well. And Yom Ha'atzmaut always falls on the same day of the week where the Jewish people got their Cherut. And Yom Ha'atzmaut is Chag Cherut. Is it a coinky-dinky that Rashi would call Shvi Shal Pesach Chag Cherut? And that's exactly the day of the week, then what? I think Rashi was also Haredi. I mean, David, you got to be blind not to see what's going on over here. You got to be blind. Pi Achirot Shvi Shal Pesach, Rashi said, and Yom Ha'atzmaut is always the same day of the week, Shvi Shal Pesach, and that's Chag Cherut, and that's what the Torah calls Cherut, not the first day of Pesach. Because we were not free yet, because the mitzvahs are coming to get us. Only in Shvi Shal Pesach did we get Cherut, in the same day of the week of Yom Ha'atzmaut. Yes?
Okay. The hotel I was in supplied every day.
Hotel California?
Wait,
No?
Haaretz. And you know what? They're blind.
The Haaretz, brainwashed. Right? Brainwashed.
Fake news. Fake news.
Anyway, unbelievable what is going on. The signs are so
I
strong.
don't see
Wait,
it.
got a question.
What?
Got a question.
You got to be a chacham, says King David in verse 43. Avram, bring the sheet home. You got to meditate the Chazdei Hashem, otherwise it passes right over your head. Yes.
Actually, the original day of Declaration of Independence in 1948 was in fact on Erev Shabbat. And they had
It was Friday. That's right. The first Heya was Friday. Yes.
careful that
Shouldn't be Chilul Shabbos, so we push it up a day.
and now the
That's a Kiddush Hashem. We push up Chag Cherut, not to be Mechal Shabbos, Dr. Abramson. That itself is a Kiddush Hashem. Not to desecrate the Shabbos. The Rabbanut moves up the celebration. Isn't that sanctifying God's name?
and another
Isn't that a what?
another thing was
And Ben
at the
Gurion
time
pushed the
when
day.
Yeah.
they declared
When-
independence,
Right.
in the hall there, Rav Yaakov Leib Fishman Maimon, he said a Shechionu.
He said Shechianu. So again, there are small ratat. You have your source sheet. He says you can make a Shechianu. It's not on the sheet, but what?
Finished what we're drawing on Saturday, on Shabbos.
Shabbos, right?
So Ben Gurion pushed independence up one day because of that.
Because of Shabbos, nachon. Because of Shabbos, nachon, of Shabbat. Right? Anyway, I'll tell you an amazing, Gemara. The amazing Gemara in Masechta Yuma 69. It says in Pashas Ekev, Hoel HaGodol HaGibav HaNorah. Where do we get that from Shenesar Yosef? It's a pasuk in Pashas Ekev, Deuteronomy 10. Hoel HaGodol HaGibav HaNorah. The great God, Al Akbar, Gibar HaNorah, the awesome and great all-powerful God. So the Gemara in Yuma 69 makes an incredible statement. The Torah calls God Ha'el HaGodol Giva Nora. Comes Yirmiyahu and he couldn't say Norah. He says, how could I say God is Norah? The Churban Bayis Rishon. Where's God's awesome power? He allowed the Jews to be destroyed, in Bayis Rishon to be destroyed and be exiled. So Yirmiyahu came and he did not say God is Norah. Bo Daniel v'yomer Gibor. Daniel came and said, how could you call God a Gibor? He allows the Churban. That was the first Holocaust. When the temple was destroyed, Jews, how many hundreds of thousands of Jews were killed, millions exiled. So Daniel didn't say Gibor. Where's God's heroism? Avram, you hear this? Yuma 69. The Anshe Knesset Agdola came, and they what? And they put it back. And they put it back. The Anshe Knesset Agdola came, and they said, how could we survive? Like one little sheep among 70 wolves? That itself is what? Hashem's greatness. So they put back Ha'el HaGodol Giva Nora. We say in Shemon Esrei, Ha'el HaGodol Giva Nora, right? So what does that mean? Anshe Knesset Agdola greater than Yirmiyahu? Greater than Daniel? No. Different time. Different perspective. When do you live? When do you live? Yirmiyahu and Daniel, they only saw Churban. They only saw Churban. Destruction, exile. So they said, God, I don't see your Norah. I don't see your awesome and your heroism. But the Anshe Knesset Hagdolah, when did they live? After the Churban, when the second temple was rebuilt. We have the unique privilege to live through the Churban, the Holocaust, and the rebirth of the state of Israel at the same time. So we saw Churban, but we also saw what, Yosef? Rebirth. The rebirth of this wonderful state of Israel. So God is Ha'el HaGodol HaGiva v'Hanora. Nobody comes back after 6 million people destroyed. Nobody comes back after 2,000 years and resurrect a dead language. That's God's awesome, great heroism. The very fact that we're here and we're thriving against all odds, that is what? The greatest miracle of all. That we have to what? Celebrate. We have to celebrate and what? And thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But some people just, they just what? Don't get it. Okay? What's amazing is, according to Kabbalah, every verse in the Chumash corresponds to a calendar year of world history. Shall I repeat that? Every verse in the Chumash. How many verses are there in the Chumash, Avram? There are 5,845 verses in the Chumash. There are 5,845 verses in the Chumash. We are now in the year what? 5778. Who's good in math? How many years to go? How much is 5845 minus 5778? Do you have a calculator there? Mashiach has to come by the year 5845, David. You know why? Because that's when we run out of verses in the Torah. How much is 5845 minus 5778? There's no calculator? Nobody has a calculator.
67.
67 years? So Mashiach has to come within the next 67 years. Hang in there. You eat healthy, you take your spirulina, we'll make it. Why does Mashiach have to come? You know why, Larry? Because we run out of verses. According to Kabbalah, every verse in the Torah corresponds to a calendar year of Jewish world history. 5,845 verses in the Chumash. What's amazing is, if you count from Bereshis Aleph Aleph, the 5708 verse in the Torah is in Devarim 30 verse 3. And I'll read it to you. It says, Vishav Hashem Elokecha Shivitcha. When you get home, you can look it up. Devarim 30 verse 3. Deuteronomy 30 verse 3 happens to be the 5708 verse in the Torah. And it says, Vishav Hashem Lakecha Shivutcha. God will bring back your captivity. V'rachmecha, and He will have mercy on you. Vishav, and He Himself will what? Return. V'kibetzcha mikol ha'amim, and He will gather you from all the nations that He scattered you there. The 5708 verse in the Torah is describing exactly what took place in the year 5708. A Jewish state in 48. Zisla, what's the Hebrew date? 5708. And the 5708 verse in the Torah is describing exactly what took place in the Hebrew year 5708, which is in the English a Jewish state in 48. Deuteronomy 33, you could Google it. Yosef, hey Google, Deuteronomy 30 verse 3, God will bring back your captivity and have compassion on you, and God Himself will come back and gather you from all the nations that you scattered you there. That's exactly what took place, Avram, in the year what? 5708. How did God know that? 3,330 years ago. Gee. Coinky dinky.
What's the verse?
Deuteronomy 33. Let's see if Google got it right. Deuteronomy 30, verse 3.
Oh, 30.
Oh.
Deuteronomy 30, verse 3.
Oh.
By the way, the Christians say the world is going to end on April 21st.
No, we still got how many years to go? I know, because the verses in the Chumash are 58, 45 verses. Then Mashiach has to come, because then we run out of verses.
But the thing is that I have all Christian sites citing that.
But anyway, what's your verse? Deuteronomy 30, verse 3. Want to read that? You ain't got it?
What's it Deuteronomy?
Devarim 30, verse 3. Is the 5708 verse in the Chumash. It says, Hashem will bring back your captivity, have mercy on you, and He Himself will return and gather you from all the nations. That process began in the year 5708, and that just happens to be the 5708 what verse in the Torah. So all of these signs point clearly that what? That we are living in miraculous times, and it's chaval that many people, even so-called frum people, do not acknowledge it. That's what hurts so much. Right?
Verse for this year.
What?
What's the verse for next year?
Well, figure it out. I gave you the secret. If Deuteronomy 33 is the 5708 verse, count 70 years since then, 70 verses. You have it?
This verse says
Why? Uncle Google don't have it?
No, it won't come up on Jewish. It only comes up on the Christian side.
So even let's see what the Christians say. Let's see what the Christians say. Devarim 30 verse 3. Deuteronomy 30 verse 3. Even the Christians can't deny that. What does it say there?
It says then Jehovah thy God will turn thy captivity and compassion upon thee, will return and gather thee from all the people.
Well, that's what happened in the year 5708, the Jewish state in 48. That's what happened. Avraham Avinu was born in the year 1948. The first Jew, the first mitzvah given to the first Jew, Avraham, was not bris milah, was what? The first Jew who was born, Lech Lecha, beautiful. The first Jew who was born in 1948, from creation, first mitzvah was to make aliyah. Can it be a coinky-dinky, Avram, that the first Jew was born in 1948 and the state of Israel was born in 1948? Even though it's lazi, but we know there are no what? Coincidences. The first Jew was born in 1948 from creation, and the first mitzvah was Lech Lecha, make aliyah, and the Jewish state was also born in 1948. There are no coincidences and there are no accidents. Rav Soloveitchik Zatzal said that the UN vote in 1948 for partition was an open miracle.
Yes.
How else could Russia and the United States, the height of the Cold War, both vote for Israel at the UN? It doesn't make any sense, says Rav Soloveitchik. Russia and America were bitter enemies in 1947.
Get along so well together.
Right? In 1948. And they both voted for partition for the state of Israel. That, says Rav Soloveitchik, is what? An open miracle. An open miracle.
So he's saying it could be possible Mashiach could come between...
Mashiach can come any day, but the end game has to be by 58:45. How do we know, Dr. Hackett? Because then we run out of verses in the Torah. And every verse in the Torah, Yehuda, corresponds to what? A year on the world history Jewish calendar. So what, only 67 to go? What? 58:45 minus 57:78. Avram, you're a mathematician, right? Is that 78? 58:45 minus 57:78. How much?
67.
Okay. So hang in there, and we just might make it. You never know. You do your exercise, you take your spirulina, and you work out. What? What 67 years? That's the end game. Of course, he can come before. Mindel, he can come before. Achakelo b'chol yom sheyavo. I won't give up my day job, don't worry. But the end game has to be by the year 58:45. When we say 6,000, we round it out. Count the verses, Avram. That's how many verses there are in the Torah scroll. There are 304,805 letters, and there are 5,805 verses in a Chumash. Now, when the end comes, when final redemption comes, Rashi makes an amazing statement that when the end comes, HaKadosh Baruch Hu will have to what? Bikoshi. Hu atzmai tzorech lios oches b'yodav mamash. The Jews will not want to leave Lakewood or Crown Heights. Rashi in Deuteronomy 30 verse 3, on the verse where God will bring you all back, says Rashi, Bal Korcho, against their will. Bikoshi, what does Bikoshi mean?
Difficult.
Difficulty. Kilu hu HaKadosh Baruch Hu kavayochel ba'atzmo tzorech lios oches b'yodav mamash. What does that mean? Oches b'yodav mamash. Ish mimkomo. They won't want to come, Avraham, from Teaneck, from Lakewood. They won't want to come from Crown Heights or Borough Park. So Rashi in Deuteronomy 33 says God Kaviyach will have to schlep them, Bikoshi. Rashi says Ish mimkomo. Ish mimkomo from Borough Park.
One at a time, like that.
Wasn't that?
No?
Some people just don't get it. They're in denial, like Pharaoh in denial.
Man.
I don't know.
They don't want to come.
We're living in momentous times. And the Vilna Gaon already said he sent his Talmidim. He tried to come here. He got shipwrecked, almost got killed by pirates. But he sent his Talmidim here in 1802, before Herzl. In 1802, he sent his Talmidim here. He said Mashiach cannot come until all the Yidden of Shmutz La'aretz make Aliyah. The Vilna Gaon said that. So the Yidden of Chutz La'aretz think that what? They're waiting for Mashiach. The Vilna Gaon says, no. Mashiach is waiting for them. Mashiach cannot come before the year 58:45 unless all the Yidden make Aliyah. Then he'll come tomorrow. Just get on an El Al plane or United maybe or JetBlue. It's easy. JetBlue, they're not coming.
Well, they also think
What?
that if they purchase an apartment, that'll cement their ties in.
What?
Because
It's a ghost. It's a ghost apartment.
The problem is that if it's a ghost,
It's a ghost. What?
they don't rent out the apartments, they don't make money off it.
So don't forget this Wednesday night and Thursday to say Hallel. Thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for the great miracle of Medinas Yisrael. Israel at 70. Stand up and give honor and kavod to the state of Israel and the HaKadosh Baruch Hu. This Thursday, of course, there's no class because it's Yom Ha'atzmaut. Celebrate. Thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we meet again next Sunday.